Well, I'm going to tell you a true life Barbie story, okay? When I was growing up, I think I mentioned I'm the fifth child in 5 years. Again, grateful to have all my parts that work. And then there were 2 miscarriages between me and my younger sister Meg, so 2 years between us, then 5 years, and then 2 boys at the end. So there were 6 girls, and then the 2 boys. My parents never developed an individual one-on-one relationship with any of us. They used to call us the girls, the boys, and my mother used to actually introduce me as her number 5 daughter. I was like, yo, Barb. My name's Barb, Mom. Number 5 daughter. So when we were growing up, my parents had the mistaken belief that in order to motivate us to be our very best or to do better, that they had to point out everything that we did wrong. And they were excellent at it. They were diligent, constantly pointing out everything that we did wrong. And what they didn't understand in their fearful desire to motivate us to be better, that it was actually hurtful, not helpful, and that it did the opposite. Rather than motivate us to do better, you're like, nothing I ever do is going to be good enough for you. Why do I even try anymore? Also, when I was growing up, in my family, actually my sister Diane stated it one time. She said, growing up in our family, if you weren't considered smart or pretty, was awful. Because if you weren't considered smart or pretty, you were nothing in the family. And that was that was really hurtful. In fact, I wasn't considered smart or pretty when I was growing up. Not a smart one, not a pretty one. And I think the reason that I escaped a lot of the negativity that the others experienced in the family was because I was athletic. And because I had that athleticism, that was an ability that I felt good about and that they seemed to recognize as acceptable. So I will tell you about one of my sisters. She had dyslexia and she was having a really hard time learning how to read. So they didn't really understand it back then either. You have to understand that this was before we had a lot of the information and the research and even special education. That title that hadn't come in yet. So that didn't come in until 1976. So at that time when I was growing up, there weren't those support services. But my parents were trying to fix my sister. And so my dad had a helicopter and he would fly her to Philadelphia to this center where they felt like they could help children like my sister who had dyslexia and learning disabilities. So again, my parents felt like they were, I'm sure, going above and beyond to try to help my sister. So then they brought these techniques back. Well, one of them was where she had to cross pattern crawl on the floor. And they made her kind of cross pattern crawl on the floor. And I know that my parents in their heart were trying to do the best thing for my sister, but what they didn't understand was that was actually more hurtful than helpful, and that singling her out and making her crawl actually did not enhance her self-esteem and really didn't help her learning. So they retained her in 3rd grade, and then the kid coming up behind her the year behind. So now they're in the same grade. And so because they were in the same grade level, they often did a comparison between the two. Please do not ever compare your children. I understand the natural tendency toward comparing your children, but don't do it. It is hurtful. It is not helpful to your children. So now they have this comparison going, and again, my sister sees herself as less than. And that's not okay, and it wasn't okay, and it really, truly damaged her sense of self and her self-esteem. And that has carried out through her life. And the interesting thing is, when she had a child, the problem was she wasn't able to heal those own wounds in herself, and then she just recreated that same very pattern in her son. Because you can't give what you don't have. So when you have a child, you have the impetus to heal any wounds. I feel really grateful. I think one of the things that I feel proudest about in my own self was that I was able to break so many cycles. The cycle of abuse in my family, the cycle of negative self-esteem, the cycle of criticism, the cycle of judgment. And when somebody said to me, okay, you're a parenting instructor, you've raised your kids, what are you proudest of? And I am proudest that both my daughters have positive self-esteem, and both my girls are living happy and successful lives. And that success wasn't determined by me, because I'll tell you real life stories, especially about my younger daughter, where she has kind of chosen a different path. And some of those choices were a little bit more challenging as far as, the social mainstream was concerned. But I was proud of her. I was proud of her for finding her own path and supported her in finding her own path. And my older daughter too. So what I'm trying to tell you is heal your own wounds so that you can give your child the best gift on earth, and that is the gift of positive self-esteem, which allows them to determine their own happiness and to determine their own success. Because happiness and success are self-bestowed. These are gifts that you give to yourself. These aren't things that you can look to other people for. And once you do that, that instills that internal locus of control. And once you do that, they're going to live a happy and successful life. Barb says, put your hand on your heart and say with me, my heart to your hearts, I wish you well. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you need more help or you'd like to schedule an appointment with me, go to my website at parenting-plus.com. You'll find my contact information and give me a call. Barb says,